There's a thief in your house right now. It's been there for months, maybe years, silently stealing what matters most to you. It doesn't break windows or pick locks. It doesn't take your jewelry or empty your bank account. Instead, it robs you of something far more precious: your happiness, your sense of purpose, and your belief that your best days are still ahead of you. The most devastating part? You probably invited this thief in yourself without even realizing it. And if you're over 50, there's a 90% chance it's sitting right beside you as you listen to this. I want you to think about the last time you felt truly deeply happy. Not just content, not just comfortable, but genuinely excited about life. When was it? Can you remember? If you're struggling to recall that feeling, you're not alone. Millions of people over 50 are living with what researchers are now calling the silent killer of happiness, and most don't even know they have it. Let me tell you about Margaret. At 57, she had everything she thought she wanted: a beautiful home in the suburbs, grown children who visited on holidays, a retirement account that promised security, and a husband of 32 years who still held her hand during movies. From the outside, her life looked perfect. But Margaret would wake up every morning with a hollow feeling in her chest, as if something essential was missing. She'd go through her days like an actor playing a role she no longer remembered auditioning for. Margaret's story isn't unique. It's the story of countless people who've crossed the threshold of 50 and found themselves face to face with an unexpected emptiness. They've achieved what society told them would make them happy, yet happiness feels more elusive than ever. They're living with the silent killer, and it's destroying their golden years before they've even begun. So what is this silent killer? It has a name, though it often goes undiagnosed and untreated. It's called learned helplessness, and it's the most insidious form of joy theft known to humanity. But before you think this is just another psychology term, let me explain why this particular condition is so devastating for people over 50, and more importantly, why the cure is simpler than you might imagine. Learned helplessness is what happens when you've been told, subtly and not so subtly, that your best years are behind you. It's the accumulation of 1,000 small surrenders, a million tiny acceptances that this is just how life is now. Society has programmed us to believe that 50 is the beginning of the slow decline, that dreams have expiration dates, and that settling for less is wisdom rather than tragedy. Think about the messages you've absorbed over the years. You're too old to start over. You should be grateful for what you have. Don't rock the boat. It's time to slow down. These aren't just innocent suggestions. They're the building blocks of learned helplessness. They teach you that you have no power to change your circumstances, that your desires don't matter anymore, and that the best you can hope for is managing decline rather than pursuing growth. Margaret discovered this when she mentioned to her family that she was thinking about going back to school to study art history, something she'd always loved but never pursued. The responses were swift and predictable. Her sister reminded her about her retirement savings. Her daughter worried about the stress. Her husband questioned whether it was practical at her age. Within minutes, Margaret's spark of possibility was extinguished by a chorus of well-meaning voices telling her to stay small, stay safe, stay still. But here's what Margaret didn't know, and what millions of people over 50 don't realize. Learned helplessness is not a life sentence. It's a learned behavior, which means it can be unlearned. The cure isn't complex therapy or expensive treatments. It's surprisingly simple, though it requires courage. The cure is reclaiming your right to want things. Not just accepting what you have, but actively desiring more. More joy, more adventure, more meaning, more connection, more growth. The cure is remembering that your dreams don't have expiration dates, that your potential doesn't diminish with age, and that the narrative of decline is a story you can choose to stop telling yourself. Let me share something that might surprise you. Some of the most successful, fulfilled, and impactful people in history didn't hit their stride until after 50. Laura Ingalls Wilder didn't publish her first Little House book until she was 64. Colonel Sanders was 62 when he franchised Kentucky Fried Chicken. Grandma Moses didn't start painting seriously until she was 78. These weren't people who accepted the script society handed them. They were people who decided to write their own. The first step in curing learned helplessness is recognizing it. Start paying attention to how many times a day you tell yourself no before anyone else has the chance to. How many dreams do you dismiss before they're fully formed? How many possibilities do you rule out because of your age, your circumstances, or what others might think? Every time you do this, you're feeding the silent killer. Margaret began her recovery when she realized she'd stopped dreaming altogether. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt excited about the future or imagined something wonderful happening to her. She'd become so focused on managing what she had that she'd forgotten about creating what she wanted. The second step is giving yourself permission to want again. This might sound simple, but for many people over 50, it's revolutionary. You've spent decades prioritizing everyone else's needs, everyone else's dreams, everyone else's definitions of what your life should look like. The idea of centering your own desires can feel selfish, impractical, or even dangerous. But here's the truth. A life without desire is not noble. It's tragic. Start small. What's something you've always wanted to try but told yourself was silly or impractical? What would you do if age, money, and other people's opinions weren't factors? Don't dismiss these thoughts. Write them down. Honor them. They're not foolish fantasies. They're messages from your authentic self, trying to guide you back to joy. Margaret started with her art history dream. Instead of enrolling in a formal program, she began with online courses. She joined museum groups. She started visiting galleries with the intensity of someone rediscovering a lost language. The hollow feeling in her chest began to fill with something she hadn't experienced in years: anticipation. The third step is taking one small action toward what you want, despite the fear, despite the doubt, despite the voices telling you to be reasonable. Action is the antidote to learned helplessness. Every time you move toward something you desire, you prove to yourself that you still have agency, that you can still shape your life, that your choices still matter. This is where the magic happens. Because once you take that first step, then the second, then the third, you begin to remember who you are beneath all the roles you've played and all the expectations you've carried. You start to reconnect with the part of yourself that believes in possibilities, that gets excited about tomorrow, that knows your story is far from over. Margaret's small actions led to bigger ones. She started a blog about art history that gained a following. She began leading informal tours at her local museum. She traveled to Italy to see the masterpieces she'd only known from books. Each step proved to her learned helplessness brain that she was wrong about her limitations. Each adventure chipped away at the silent killer until it had no power over her anymore. But the most profound change wasn't in what Margaret did. It was in how she felt. The hollow feeling disappeared, replaced by a sense of purpose and excitement she hadn't felt since her 20s. She woke up curious about the day ahead. She went to bed satisfied with how she'd spent her time. She discovered that happiness after 50 wasn't about accepting less. It was about finally having the wisdom and freedom to pursue what truly mattered to her. The fourth and final step is surrounding yourself with people who support your growth, rather than your stagnation. This might mean having difficult conversations with family members who've grown comfortable with your smaller self. It might mean finding new friends who share your renewed sense of possibility. It definitely means limiting time with people who consistently respond to your dreams with warnings, worries, and reasons why you can't. The truth is, some people are invested in keeping you small. Your growth challenges their own learned helplessness. Your courage makes their fear more obvious. Your joy highlights their resignation. This isn't malicious. It's human. But you don't have to sacrifice your happiness to make others comfortable with their choices. Margaret found this to be the hardest part of her journey. Some family members couldn't understand her transformation. They preferred the predictable Margaret who stayed in her lane, who didn't disrupt the family dynamic with her newfound enthusiasm and independence. But Margaret also discovered something wonderful. There were people everywhere who were inspired by her courage, who had been waiting for permission to pursue their own postponed dreams. She started attracting friends who shared her love of learning, her sense of adventure, her belief that life after 50 could be the most fulfilling chapter yet. She joined hiking groups, book clubs, and travel organizations filled with people who had refused to accept society's timeline for when life should become smaller and safer. Here's what the research shows and what Margaret's story confirms. People who maintain a sense of agency and continue pursuing meaningful goals after 50 don't just live longer, they live better. They have stronger immune systems, better cognitive function, lower rates of depression, and higher levels of life satisfaction. The cure for the silent killer isn't just about happiness. It's about health, longevity, and making the most of what could be your best decades yet. But perhaps most importantly, when you cure your own learned helplessness, You become a beacon for others. Your example gives other people permission to reclaim their dreams. Your courage inspires others to question the limitations they've accepted. Your joy reminds everyone around you that life doesn't have to become smaller with age. It can become deeper, richer, and more meaningful. If you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in Margaret's story, if you're feeling that hollow sensation or that sense that your best days are behind you, I want you to know something: you're not stuck. The silent killer of learned helplessness is powerful, but it's not stronger than your desire for a meaningful life. The cure is within your reach, starting with this moment, starting with the decision to want something more. Your age is not a limitation. It's an advantage. You have wisdom now that you didn't have at 20 or 30. You have perspective, resources, and most importantly, the knowledge that life is precious and finite. You don't have to waste another day accepting less than what your heart desires. The script society hands you after 50 is just a suggestion. You can rewrite it. You can choose growth over stagnation, adventure over safety, possibility over resignation. You can decide that your dreams don't have expiration dates, and that the best chapters of your story are still being written. Margaret is now 62. She leads art tours in Europe, has published a book about Renaissance painters, and recently enrolled in a master's program in art history. When people ask her about starting over so late in life, she laughs and tells them she didn't start over, she started living. The silent killer is gone, replaced by a sense of purpose and joy that grows stronger every year. Your happiness doesn't have to be a casualty of aging. Your dreams don't have to shrink to fit society's expectations. Your life doesn't have to become smaller just because you've lived more of it. The cure for the silent killer is simple. Remember who you are beneath all the shoulds and shouldn'ts, reconnect with what you truly want, and have the courage to pursue it one small step at a time. The thief that's been stealing your happiness doesn't have to win. You have the power to reclaim what it's taken, and to protect what matters most going forward. Your best years aren't behind you. They're waiting for you to claim them. The only question is, are you ready to start? Every single person watching this has felt that hollow ache at some point. That sense that life is just happening to you instead of being shaped by you. But here's what I know for certain. It's never too late to feel excited about tomorrow. It's never too late to surprise yourself. And it's never too late to prove that your dreams were just waiting patiently for you to remember them. The person you were meant to become is still there, still hoping, still believing that the best is yet to come. Don't let the silent killer steal one more day from the life you were meant to live. What resonated most with you from Margaret's story? Have you recognized the silent killer in your own life? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to start their own journey. And if this message touched your heart, please consider subscribing to our channel. We're building a community of people who refuse to accept that life gets smaller with age, and I'd be honored to have you join us. Thank you for watching, for being here, and for believing that your happiness matters at every age.